It had been 3 years since I last heard her voice. 3 years since our lives unraveled in ways neither of us could have imagined. 3 years of silence, distance, and healing, or at least trying to heal. I never expected to see her again, especially not on that quiet stretch of beach where the waves whispered secrets and the sun kissed the horizon goodnight. Back then, our marriage was a fragile thread stretched too thin by misunderstandings, disappointments, and choices that couldn't be undone. The day she walked away, she left behind not just the house we shared, but the life I thought we were building together. I was left with memories, regrets, and an aching silence that echoed louder than any argument. For a long time, I felt lost, drifting in a sea of what-ifs and could-have-beens. The world seemed muted, as if color had been drained from everything I once held dear. But life has a way of surprising you. Slowly, the pain began to fade. I rediscovered parts of myself I had buried under the weight of heartbreak. Friends pulled me back from the edge. New passions sparked small flames of joy. And then, almost unexpectedly, love found me again. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It came quietly, in shared smiles and gentle conversations that stretched into the night. Someone who saw me, not as the broken man left behind, but as someone worth believing in. This new relationship didn't erase the past, but it helped me build a future. So when I found myself standing on that beach, the salty breeze brushing against my skin and the sun warming my face, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. I was with someone who made me smile in ways I thought were lost forever. I was finally free. Then, out of nowhere, she appeared. The woman who had once been my wife, the source of so much pain and confusion, was walking toward me after all this time. The years of silence shattered in an instant, and the look on her face when she saw who I was with, well, that was something I would never forget. Looking back, I can pinpoint the moment when everything began to fall apart, although at the time I was too blinded by hope to see it clearly. Our marriage, once full of laughter and shared dreams, slowly unraveled thread by thread. The signs were subtle at first: late nights at work, distracted conversations, a growing distance I couldn't bridge. But beneath those small cracks lay deeper fractures neither of us wanted to acknowledge. We stopped communicating. Or rather, we spoke but didn't listen. Words became weapons, defenses rose like walls, and the warmth we once shared turned cold and brittle. I remember the nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering where the woman I loved had gone, and if she was still somewhere inside the person she'd become. The hardest part wasn't the fights or the silence. It was a feeling of being invisible in a life we once built together. I tried to reach her, to hold on, but it was like grasping smoke. Each attempt slipped through my fingers, leaving me more empty than before. One afternoon, everything came to a head. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, the place where we had once shared morning coffee and whispered dreams. That day, the space between us was filled with tension and unspoken accusations. "I'm not happy," she said quietly, almost too quiet for me to hear. "I don't think I've been happy for a long time." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to argue, to convince her that we could fix this, that love wasn't something you just gave up on. But deep down, I knew the truth. Sometimes love isn't enough. She confessed to feeling trapped, suffocated by expectations and unspoken resentments. I felt the weight of my own failings. Times I had been distant, careless, or just too caught up in my own world to notice her pain. We both shared blame, yet the blame felt irrelevant against a growing divide. That conversation ended without resolution. We didn't yell or storm out. We just sat there, two strangers at a table, knowing something precious had slipped away. Days later, she packed a bag and left. There was no dramatic goodbye, no promises to try harder or to come back. Just silence, an echo that filled the empty house and my shattered heart. The silence stretched into weeks, then months. We didn't speak. We didn't see each other. The life we had imagined vanished like a fading dream. In the aftermath, I was left to pick up the pieces alone. The loneliness was suffocating. I questioned everything: my worth, my choices, my future. Friends offered comfort, but even their words couldn't fill the emptiness that gnawed at me. I battled nights filled with memories and mornings that felt cold and uninviting. But amid the pain, Something began to stir, a small, stubborn spark of resilience. I realized that while I couldn't change the past, I could control how I moved forward. I started therapy, joined groups, and slowly learned to face my emotions instead of burying them. I focused on my work and rekindled old hobbies that had fallen by the wayside. Bit by bit, I began to find my footing again. Still, the wound remained raw and tender. The image of her, walking away, haunted me more than I cared to admit. I wondered if she regretted it, if she thought about me as I did her. But I also knew that some questions didn't have answers, and sometimes closure had to come from within. That's what I promised myself, to find peace, no matter how long it took. Little did I know, the past wasn't finished with me yet. The day she appeared on that beach, 3 years later, would challenge everything I had built since our separation. After she left, I found myself in unfamiliar territory, a life that no longer included her, no longer revolved around us. At first, it was hard to imagine a future without the person who had been by my side for so long. The house fell hollow, the routines that once bound us shattered. I was forced to confront a world that had changed overnight. But as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, I began to rebuild. The first step was reclaiming myself. I rediscovered hobbies I had long neglected. Early morning runs by the river, evenings spent reading books that had gathered dust, and weekend hikes that let me clear my mind. Slowly, these small acts stitched together fragments of my broken spirit. Friends, too, became a lifeline. They reminded me that I wasn't alone, that life could still hold joy and laughter beyond the pain. We met for dinners, went to concerts, and shared stories late into the night. Their support became the foundation on which I started to stand again. Work became more than just a job. It was a way to regain purpose and direction. I threw myself into projects, met new people, and found satisfaction in accomplishments that were entirely my own. For the first time in a long while, I felt capable, in control. And then, unexpectedly, love found its way back into my life. Her name was Emily. We met through a mutual friend at a small gathering, a casual introduction that blossomed into something much more meaningful. She was kind and understanding, with a gentle confidence that made me feel safe. Unlike before, there was no pressure, no unspoken expectations. Just two people enjoying each other's company. Our conversations flowed easily. Laughter came naturally, and slowly, walls I thought were permanent began to crumble. With Emily, I learned that love could be patient and healing. It wasn't about fixing what was broken, but building something new, something better. Despite this new happiness, memories of my past relationship lingered. There were moments when doubt crept in, wondering if I was ready, if I was deserving. I wrestled with guilt and fear, but Emily's unwavering support helped me move beyond them. I realized that moving on didn't mean forgetting or erasing the past. It meant accepting it, the good and the bad, and choosing to live fully in the present. As the months passed, our bond grew stronger. We explored new places together, shared quiet evenings, and celebrated the small victories that life brought. With Emily by my side, the future no longer seemed daunting, but filled with promise. And so, standing on the shore of that same beach, the place where so many memories were born, I felt a quiet confidence. The sun warmed my face, the waves whispered comfort, and for the first time in years, I was truly at peace. Little did I know, fate had a surprise waiting for me. A figure from my past would soon emerge on the horizon, breaking the silence of 3 long years and setting in motion a moment that neither of us would forget. The beach had always been a place of solace for me, a place where the worries of life seemed to dissolve into the endless rhythm of the waves. That afternoon, the sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the sand and sea. A gentle breeze carried the salty scent of the ocean, and the world felt calm, almost timeless. I was there with Emily, my new partner, enjoying a rare moment of peace. We walked slowly along the shore, our feet sinking into the warm sand, hands intertwined. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by shared laughter and the occasional quiet pause as we simply took in the beauty around us. I was thinking about how far I'd come, the pain of the past fading like the tide receding from the shore. I felt happy, grounded, and most importantly, free. Then, Almost without warning, my heart skipped a beat. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure approaching. Someone familiar yet distant, like a ghost from a past life. It was her, my ex-wife. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The waves continued their steady crash. Seagulls called overhead, but all I could focus on was a woman walking toward me. The years of silence, the unspoken words, the broken promises, they all came rushing back in an overwhelming flood. She looked different, older, perhaps, but unmistakably her. Her eyes, once full of warmth and love, now held something else. Surprise, hesitation, maybe even regret. Emily noticed her too and squeezed my hand gently, a silent question in her eyes. I gave a small nod, my mind racing but my face calm. As my ex-wife drew closer, I noticed a subtle shift in her expression. The confident, distant woman I remembered was replaced by someone fragile, uncertain. Her step slowed, as if unsure whether to keep coming or turn away. I didn't speak at first. There was too much to say, and yet none of it seemed to matter at that moment. The years apart had created a vast gulf, and here we were, standing on opposite sides of it. For a brief moment, our eyes met. I saw a flicker of something. Pain, sorrow, maybe even longing, but was quickly replaced by a guarded look. She glanced over at Emily, then back to me, and then, as if the reality of what she was seeing finally sank in, her composed facade cracked. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. The silence was thick, almost unbearable. Emily stood quietly beside me, radiating calm and quiet strength. Her presence was a reminder of how much had changed, how much I had healed. My ex-wife looked as though she wanted to say something, perhaps explain the past or demand answers, but the moment slipped away. Instead, she turned and began to walk away, her shoulders hunched and her head bowed. I watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and closure. The woman who had once been my whole world was now just a stranger walking away on the same beach where I had found peace. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a deep sense of calm settle over me. The past had finally met the present, and I was ready to move forward. Emily smiled softly and rested her head on my shoulder. Together, we watched the waves roll in, knowing that whatever came next, we would face it side by side. The moment she saw me standing there with Emily, something inside her shifted. Her confident stride faltered, and for the first time since our separation, I caught a glimpse of vulnerability in her eyes. It was as if the years of silence and distance had vanished, replaced by an unexpected and raw wave of emotion. Her face, once composed and guarded, broke like fragile glass. The smile she once wore, the one that used to mask so much, disappeared, replaced by a mixture of shock, disbelief, and something close to regret. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of us together, the closeness between Emily and me impossible to miss. For a moment, she simply stood there, speechless, as if the reality of what she was seeing hadn't quite sunk in. The woman who had walked away from me 3 years ago, dismissing our past with a laugh and a cold goodbye, now looked shattered in the presence of a new chapter one had written without her. I noticed the way her breath hitched, a small quiver of emotion betraying the tough exterior she had so carefully maintained all these years. She bit her lip, trying to regain control, but her hands trembled slightly. It was clear she hadn't expected to see me like this, happy, whole, and moving forward. Emily's presence seemed to unsettle her even more. The quiet confidence Emily radiated was a stark contrast to the fragile expression on my ex-wife's face. For a brief second, I caught the flicker of jealousy, or maybe it was a realization that she had lost something irreplaceable. The air between us was thick with unspoken words and memories long buried. I felt the weight of those years, the hurt, the betrayal, and the silent goodbyes, hang heavily in the space between us. Yet, I didn't gloat or revel in her pain. Instead, I stood tall, calm, and grounded. I had fought hard to reclaim my life, and this moment was not about vengeance. It was about closure. She looked away, unable to hold my gaze, and for the first time, I saw doubt cloud her eyes. Maybe she wondered if leaving me had been the right choice. Maybe she felt the sting of lost love more deeply than she ever admitted. And then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, She turned and started walking away, the weight of her shattered composure visible in every hesitant step. I watched her go, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The woman who had once been my everything was now a shadow fading into the past. Her broken expression stayed with me, not as a source of triumph, but as a reminder of how much we had both endured. Turning back to Emily, I saw the understanding in her eyes. She squeezed my hand gently, and I knew that no matter what happened, we were building something new, something real. The waves continued to crash, the sun dipped lower, and I finally allowed myself to breathe. The look on her face that day wasn't just shock. It was the end of a chapter, and the beginning of a new one for me. After she turned to walk away, as if to disappear forever into the fading light, something made her pause. The hesitation in her step spoke volumes. Years of silence and unresolved feelings suddenly demanding to be confronted. Slowly, she stopped and looked back at me, the weight of unspoken words heavy in her eyes. I took a deep breath and called her name softly, unsure if she'd even hear me. When she turned fully, a flicker of surprise crossed her face, but she didn't walk away. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice fragile yet determined. I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. We moved a few steps away from Emily, who gave a reassuring smile and a gentle squeeze on my shoulder before stepping back to give us space. The moment felt surreal, like a scene out of a long-forgotten dream. The salty breeze mixed with the distant sound of waves, and time seemed to slow down just enough for us to face the past. "I never thought I'd see you again," she began, eyes fixed on sand beneath her feet. "Not like this. Not with her." I looked at her steadily, recalling the years of hurt, confusion, and growth. "Neither did I admitted. "But here we are." She swallowed hard, gathering courage. "I've had a lot of time to think, to regret everything." Her confession was both a shock and a relief. For so long, I had wondered if she even cared. Now, hearing those words stirred memories I thought were buried. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking, "for the way I left, for the silence, for the pain I caused you." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that. I won't lie. Those years were hard. But I've learned a lot since then." "Have you?" she asked cautiously, searching my face for any sign of bitterness. "Yes," I replied honestly. "I've learned that holding on to anger only keeps you stuck. That healing means accepting what happened and moving forward." She looked up, eyes moist with unshed tears. "I was scared," she confessed. "Scared of who I was becoming. Scared of what our marriage had turned into. I thought walking away was the only way to find myself." I understood that fear. It was something I had wrestled with too, though in different ways. "I get that now," I said quietly. We both needed to find ourselves. A silence fell between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a space filled with understanding, empathy, and the acknowledgement of shared pain. Then she asked a question I never expected. "Are you happy?" I looked toward Emily, who stood waiting patiently but respectfully. Turning back, I met my ex-wife's gaze. I said firmly, "I'm happy with Emily. And more importantly, I'm happy with who I've become." Her expression softened. "She's good for you." "She is," I agreed. For a moment, we simply stood there, two people who had once loved and lost, now strangers who had found a way to forgive. "Thank you for giving me this conversation," she said, a small, grateful smile breaking through. "I needed it." "Me too," I said. As we turned back toward Emily, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the sand. The weight of the past felt lighter somehow, replaced by a quiet hope for the future. We didn't pretend everything was perfect. Some wounds take longer to heal. But in that moment, with the ocean's endless horizon before us, I knew we had taken a step toward true closure. And that was enough. After that day on the beach, life seemed to take on a new meaning. The encounter with my ex-wife wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was a turning point, a chance to close a chapter that had long weighed heavily on my heart. In the days that followed, I found myself reflecting deeply on everything that had happened. The pain of our separation, the years of silence, and the unexpected reunion. All of it formed a tapestry of experiences that shaped who I was. It wasn't easy to confront those memories, but doing so brought a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I realized that closure doesn't mean forgetting or erasing the past. It means accepting it, embracing the lessons learned, forgiving the mistakes made, and allowing yourself to heal. It's about releasing the bitterness that can hold you captive and opening your heart to new possibilities. Talking with my ex-wife, hearing her regrets and fears, helped me see our story from a different perspective. We were both imperfect, both scared, and both trying to find our way in a complicated world. Understanding this didn't erase the hurt, but it softened its edge. Most importantly, I recognized the strength it took to move forward, to rebuild my life piece by piece, and to open myself up to love again. Emily had been a light in that journey, a reminder that happiness is possible even after heartbreak. As I spent time with her, I appreciated the simplicity of our relationship, the honesty, the laughter, and the quiet moments of support. She didn't try to fix me. She accepted me. That acceptance was a balm to my weary soul. Closure also meant letting go of any lingering resentment toward my ex-wife. Holding on to anger had only chained me to the past. Forgiving her and myself was an act of liberation. It allowed me to fully embrace the present and look forward to the future without the shadows of old wounds. Of course, healing is a process, not an event. Some days are harder than others, but I faced them with a renewed sense of hope and resilience. That beach encounter taught me that sometimes life offers second chances, not necessarily to rekindle old relationships, but to find peace and understanding. It reminded me that even in the darkest moments, there's light waiting to be found. Now, when I think about those 3 years of silence, I don't see them as wasted time, but as a necessary journey. A journey that led me here, to this place of acceptance, growth, and unexpected happiness. In the end, it wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about finding my own truth. And that truth was clear. I was ready to live fully, love openly, and embrace whatever came next. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. That day on the beach was not just a meeting of past and present. It was the beginning of something entirely new. After our conversation, I felt a lightness I hadn't known for years. The weight of old wounds was lifted, replaced by a quiet confidence that I was exactly where I needed to be. It was as if the universe had gently nudged me forward, encouraging me to embrace the future without fear or hesitation. Emily and I continued to grow closer. Our relationship deepened, rooted not in the shadows of what once was, but in the promise of what could be. We traveled to places we had dreamed about, laughed until our sides ached, and built a life filled with kindness and mutual respect. I found joy in the little things. Morning coffee shared in silence, spontaneous road trips, and evenings spent under starry skies. These moments, simple yet profound, reminded me of the beauty in new beginnings. At work, I discovered renewed purpose. The challenges I once dreaded became opportunities to learn and thrive. I was no longer just surviving, I was truly living. Though my past relationship had ended painfully, it taught me invaluable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of growth. I carried those lessons with me, using them as guideposts along my journey. Occasionally, memories of the old days surfaced, but they no longer held me captive. Instead, they served as reminders of how far I had come. Sometimes, I think about my ex-wife and wonder what her life looks like now. I hope she has found her own peace and happiness, just as I have. There is no bitterness, only gratitude for the role she played in my story. Now, standing on the threshold of this new chapter, I feel ready for whatever comes next. Life may still hold challenges, but I face them with strength, hope, and the unwavering support of someone who truly cares. In the end, the beach encounter was more than a chance reunion. It was a turning point that allowed me to reclaim my life. It taught me that even after heartbreak, we can find healing, love, and new beginnings. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one conversation, to change everything.